Well, Roy Lilley is a former NHS Trust Chair. Let's talk to him now. Roy, we have the doctor strikes ongoing at the moment, and really it's a dark day for the NHS, isn't it, when you have consultants and junior doctors on strike at the same time, and the real victims in all of this, of course, are patients.
Sure. Good afternoon. The patients are the collateral damage. They're caught in the crossfire. They're the ones that are the victims. They can do nothing to resolve this. The politicians and the doctors have got to fight this out. It's unusual, actually, because generally speaking, coordinated strikes are really very difficult to do because unions have got very tight rules about timescales and ballots and what have you, and getting them to coordinate is synchronized is difficult. It's different here because the consultants, although they're a discrete group in the NHS and the junior doctors are another discrete group, they share the same overarching trade union. So effectively, this is two parts of the BMA that's on strike together. So it's a unique situation, and it's making life hell in hospitals. It's really a nightmare.
We're also hearing about the NHS having to pay millions of pounds to plug holes in the frontline staffing. In one case, a consultant in Plymouth was paid more than £3,000 to cover a 12.5-hour junior doctor night shift. Clearly, the expense of this is huge. What do you think will happen now, Roy? Because Rishi Sunak, I was at the press conference a few weeks ago where he said, here's the offer, take it or leave it, that's it, no more negotiations. What do you think happens now? How do we get to the end of this? How do we get through it?
Well, I mean, let's start with Sunak. He said that there will be no more negotiations. So he's kind of driven everybody into a cul-de-sac, because if there's any more negotiation, it means he's got to do a screaming U-turn, and he's not going to do that. Last week, we were reporting on this channel that there was a summit at number 10 with health leaders to talk about the winter crisis. Actually, it was nothing to do with the winter crisis. They were talking about the strikes, and they came away with a £200 million bung, which ostensibly was to fund the winter crisis, but really it was to pay the cost of the strikes. The agency costs and the admin costs of cancelling, all these appointments and then reinstating them. And it's a laborious thing because you really do have to make sure you get in touch with people. A lot of people by letter and phone. Yeah. It's a nightmare job. So what happens now? Well, it looks to me like the consultants are starting to have a rethink. They've said today, we'll settle for 12%. It sounds to me that they've read the room. I think they realise they're not going to have very much in the way of public support when you're earning 80, 90, 100,000 a year. The junior doctors, they're not going to get anywhere near 35%. What needs to happen, I think, is there needs to be a stage 3-year deal. The way round it, Prime Minister says he won't talk about this year's deal, that's it. Well, you could say, OK, we'll use this as the foundation year. Let's talk about the next 2 years where we'll do another 10% or another 15%, something like that. So you can get back to some kind of pay parity that would satisfy them. And of course, if you look at the polling, it looks, I don't think anybody's really expecting the Conservatives to form the next administration. So they could push the majority of the costs of settling this into the lap of the next government. And that seems to me one way out of this. But the way it stands, the doctors have balloted. They got another load of strikes in October, another lot in November. It pushes right into winter, the worst possible time for the NHS. And of course, the people on the waiting list are the ones that are really suffering. The doctors are saying, we've covered the A&E and ITU, it's going to be safe. Sure. But we've got people on waiting lists with clinical priorities just being dumped. Not once, twice, 3 times, 4 times I've heard stories. And we have to fix that, because this is a kind of hidden collateral damage that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah. Roy, I think you speak a lot of sense. We will see what happens with this. Thank you, Roy Lilley.